The morning sunlight trickled through the kitchen blinds, painting striped patterns across the cool granite countertop where Ethan Carter stood brewing his coffee. Thin tendrils of steam curled from the mud as he added a splash of cream, the soft clink of his spoon echoing in the stillness. The silence in the house was the kind that once brought him peace, but now felt unsettling, like the quiet before a storm. His wedding band caught the light as he stirred, a subtle reminder of commitments that felt heavier than they used to. He glanced at the clock. 7:15 a.m. 10 years of marriage had taught him to anticipate the rhythm of mornings with Sophia, a cadence as familiar as the lines in his palm. Soon, she'd be up, darting around the house with the frenetic energy that had become her signature in recent months. Right on cue, he heard the muffled sound of footsteps upstairs, followed by the creak of their bedroom door opening. But something was different these days. The predictable routine they had built over a decade now felt slightly off, like a favorite song played just a beat too slow. The changes were small but persistent. Longer showers, more time meticulously applying makeup, and a newfound attention to her wardrobe that he hadn't seen since their early days. It gnawed at him, a persistent itch he couldn't scratch. Carrying his coffee to the breakfast nook, he opened his laptop to check emails. His mind, however, strayed from the detailed blueprints for the architecture firm's upcoming presentation to the unsettling shifts at home. As if on cue, the crisp sound of heels clicking against the hardwood announced Sophia's entrance. She appeared in the doorway, perfectly composed in a tailored navy pencil skirt and cream blouse. Her dark hair, carefully styled, cascaded past her shoulders, reminiscent of the effort she once reserved for their date nights, back when they still had those. "Morning," he greeted, studying her as she walked straight to the coffee maker, her phone already in hand. "Morning," she replied absently, her eyes glued to the screen. Her fingers moved quickly, typing a message with a slight smile tugging at her lips. A smile Ethan hadn't seen aimed at him in what felt like forever. "Want breakfast?" "I can make eggs," he offered, his voice tinged with nostalgia for the mornings they used to spend planning their day together over scrambled eggs and shared newspaper sections. "No time," she answered briskly, grabbing a travel mug and filling it without looking up. "Big presentation today. The Johnson account needs final revisions before the meeting." Ethan nodded, noticing how she still avoided meeting his eyes. "Another late night then?" "Probably," she said, dropping a tea bag into the mud. A new habit she'd picked up recently, switching to green tea for the sake of her skin, she claimed. "Don't wait up for dinner. I'll grab something at the office." "I could bring you lunch," he suggested, testing the waters. "There's a new Thai place near your building." For the first time, she looked at him, but her gaze flicked away as quickly as it landed. "That's sweet, but I got a working lunch with the team. Maybe another time." Her phone buzzed, interrupting the moment. The smile that flashed across her face was automatic, almost reflexive, and it hit Ethan like a sucker punch. She turned slightly, shielding the screen from his view as she typed a quick reply. "I should go," she said, grabbing her purse and heading toward the hallway mirror. She paused to touch up her lipstick, ruby wheel, the one he'd given her last Christmas, and fluffed her hair with practiced precision. "Have a good day." The soft click of the front door closing echoed in the empty house, leaving Ethan alone with his thoughts and a cooling cup of coffee. He sat there, trying to pinpoint when everything had started to change. It wasn't a sudden shift, but a slow erosion, like waves carving away at a shoreline. Yet looking back, the signs were glaring. The new password on her phone, clothes appearing in her closet with the tags conveniently removed, and whispered phone calls taken out of earshot. All pieces of a puzzle he couldn't ignore. At work, Ethan struggled to focus. The blueprints for the Harrison project blurred in front of him as his mind replayed the morning's interactions. "Earth to Ethan," said Lucas, his colleague and closest friend at the firm, waving a hand in front of his face. "You've been staring at that section for ages." "What's up?" Ethan blinked and forced a tight smile. "Just thinking about the support beam placement," he lied. Lucas leaned against the desk, lowering his voice. "Sure it's not something else? You've been off lately." "It's nothing." Ethan straightened the papers on his desk, a nervous habit when his thoughts refused to settle. Just some stuff at home I need to figure out. Lucas raised his hands defensively. Got it? None of my business. Just saying. I'm here if you need to talk. Ethan nodded, appreciating the gesture, but unwilling to voice the suspicions swirling in his head. Admitting them out loud would make them real, and he wasn't ready for that. Not yet. The day dragged, each hour tempting him to drive by Sophia's office to confirm her working lunch story. Instead, he buried himself in the Harrison project, making more progress in one afternoon than he had all week. By the time he left, the sun was already setting, and he decided to cook dinner, a small act of normalcy in a life that felt anything but. Stopping at the grocery store, he picked up ingredients for her favorite chicken marsala. Maybe a familiar meal would help bridge the growing distance between them. But the house felt unusually empty when he returned, even though Sophia was rarely home this early. He moved through the motions of cooking, the routine offering a temporary distraction. The chicken had just come out of the oven when he heard her key in the lock, earlier than usual. His pulse quickened as her heels clicked on the hardwood, pausing, as always, by the hallway mirror. No doubt, she was checking her reflection again. Something smells amazing, Sophia said as she entered the kitchen, her cheeks slightly flushed, her hair just tousled enough to make Ethan wonder if it was the wind or something else. She placed her purse on the counter, but kept it within arm's reach, her posture subtle but defensive. I thought we could have dinner together for a change, Ethan said casually, his tone light as he carefully plated the food. How was the presentation? It went great, she replied, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear, a telltale sign of nervousness he knew all too well. The client loved our initial concepts. We're moving forward with a full proposal. Ethan nodded, setting their plates on the dining room table. He'd opened a bottle of red earlier and poured her a glass, letting the wine breathe. Sophia slid into her chair, immediately reaching for her phone. Work can wait, he suggested, placing the wine in front of her. When's the last time we actually had dinner together? A flicker of guilt crossed her face as she set the phone down. You're right, she said, managing a smile. This looks wonderful, honey. The meal began, but the atmosphere felt mechanical. The clinking of utensils and soft scrape of cutlery on plates were the only sounds filling the space. Ethan observed her carefully, watching how her eyes darted to the phone every few moments, how her leg bounced under the table. Another one of her nervous habits. How's the Johnson account really going? He asked, breaking the silence. Must be keeping you busy with all these late nights. Sophia looked up, her expression distracted. Yes, she said, her tone almost too quick. The client has really specific demands. Oliver, she hesitated briefly, but the pause was enough. The team's been putting in extra hours to meet their expectations. As if on cue, her phone lit up where it rested on the table. She shifted slightly in her chair, and Ethan caught the flash of the message before she angled it away. His stomach dropped. The words burned into his mind. I can't wait to do it again with you in the shower. Time froze. Ethan felt the weight of his fork like it had turned to lead. The blood roared in his ears, drowning out every other sound. He couldn't stop replaying the words, each repetition a fresh stab. Sophia's hands shot out to grab the phone, and though she tried to act casual, the tremor in her fingers betrayed her. Her face paled, confirming what Ethan already knew. Everything okay? He asked, his voice unnervingly steady despite the chaos raging inside him. Just work stuff, she mumbled, stuffing the phone in her pocket as if hiding it could erase what he'd seen. You know how it is, deadlines, client demands. Ethan forced himself to take another bite of chicken, though it tasted like cardboard. His thoughts churned, each moment from the past few months replaying in his mind with new, damning clarity. The late nights, the guarded phone, the emotional distance. It all fit together now, a terrible puzzle completed. I should look over some files for tomorrow, Sophia said suddenly, standing with an abruptness that made her chair scrape against the floor. Her plate, barely touched, was left behind. Thanks for dinner. It was delicious. Ethan watched her retreat to the home office, his appetite completely gone. The urge to confront her, to demand answers, boiled inside him. But something colder, more calculating, held him back. He needed to know everything first. That night, lying beside her in bed, Ethan stared at the ceiling fan spinning lazy circles above him. Sophia's back was turned to him, her breathing even, but too controlled to be real sleep. The space between them felt like a chasm. He thought about their wedding day, the joy in her eyes as she vowed to love him forever. Now, all those memories seemed distant, tainted by her betrayal. The next morning, Ethan began his investigation in earnest. He left for work early, but parked near Sophia's office instead. From his car, he watched her arrive, noting how she checked her reflection in the glass door before entering. 20 minutes later, a man he didn't recognize held the door open for her, following close behind. Their interaction was too familiar, too comfortable. Over the next few days, Ethan pieced together more of the truth. He noticed how Sophia never left her phone unattended, even taking it to the bathroom. But her confidence slipped, leaving small openings in her security. During one such moment, while she was in the shower, Ethan accessed her phone. His hands trembled as he opened her email, thankful she hadn't thought to change that password. The evidence was all there. Conversations with Oliver Bennett, filled with flirtatious innuendos and references to meetings that didn't exist on her work calendar. Ethan's stomach churned as he performed a quick LinkedIn search. Oliver's profile revealed a man in his early 30s with carefully styled dark hair and a polished headshot fit for a magazine. He was a senior account manager at Sophia's firm, with glowing recommendations praising his charm and ability to connect with clients. Each detail twisted the knife deeper. At dinner, Ethan pretended everything was fine, asking about her day as she spun tales of project deadlines and demanding clients. He noticed how she subtly checked her phone under the table, her lips curling into a faint smile at messages he couldn't see. The final confirmation came unexpectedly. Ethan stopped for coffee near Sophia's office, coincidentally in the area for a client meeting. At a nearby table, two women gossiped loudly enough for him to overhear. "Did you see them at the holiday party?" one whispered. Oliver was practically glued to Sophia. "He's always been a player, right?" The other replied knowingly. "Remember Emma from accounting? Same story, different year. Though, I have to say he usually sticks to single women." Ethan's grip on his coffee cup tightened, the cardboard bending under the pressure. He forced himself to remain calm, his breathing controlled, as the women continued. "Well, you know what they say about the quiet ones," the first added. "She always seems so straight-laced, but I guess Oliver has a way of bringing out the wild side." "Did you see them at Murphy's last week?" one of the women at the nearby table asked, her voice low, but not quiet enough. "I was there with Liam, having tea, and they were in the back booth. Definitely not discussing the Johnson account, if you catch my drift." Their laughter followed, sharp and grating, cutting into Ethan's already raw nerves. He stood abruptly, leaving his half-finished coffee on the table as he headed for the door. The cold air outside bit at his face, offering a brief reprieve from the heat of his swirling thoughts. But the women's words echoed relentlessly in his mind. That evening, Ethan watched Sophia prepare for yet another late meeting. Something inside him shifted as he observed her from the kitchen doorway. His emotions no longer a messy tangle of hurt and disbelief, but something colder, sharper. He noticed every detail. The way she applied fresh lipstick in the hallway mirror, smoothed her skirt with meticulous care, and adjusted her hair with the precision of someone trying to impress. "Don't wait up," she called over her shoulder, her voice light and practiced. "Lots to review for the Johnson account." "Of course," Ethan replied evenly. "Good luck with the review." The door clicked shut behind her, and Ethan walked to the window, watching her car pull out of the driveway. He waited until her taillights disappeared around the corner before grabbing his keys. Tonight, he decided, he would see for himself what kind of review she was conducting. Following her was easier than he'd anticipated. She drove to a quaint Italian restaurant on the other side of town, far enough from both their home and her office to avoid recognition. Through the softly lit window, Ethan saw her greet Oliver with a kiss that left no room for ambiguity. They settled into a booth, leaning close, sharing a bottle of wine, and laughing like they didn't have a care in the world. Ethan sat in his car, gripping the steering wheel so tightly his knuckles turned white. He studied every detail: Oliver's face, the way his hand rested casually on Sophia's across the table, how they seemed utterly at ease in each other's company. This wasn't a fling. It was an affair deeply rooted in familiarity. The following week was a blur of observation and careful documentation. Ethan tracked their patterns, their meeting spots, the lies Sophia told to cover her absences. He saw her transform into a woman he barely recognized, laughing and flirting with a liveliness she hadn't shown him in years. Each night, as she lay beside him in their bed, Ethan refined his plan. The raw fury he had felt had cooled into something calculated and deliberate. He didn't want to confront her impulsively or storm out in dramatic fashion. That would be too simple, too easy for them to dismiss. No, he wanted them both to understand the depth of their betrayal and what it had cost. One evening, as Sophia showered, Ethan's eyes fell on her phone, carelessly left on the kitchen counter. Her confidence in maintaining her double life had made her reckless. When the screen lit up with a notification, Ethan seized the moment. The message was from Oliver, discussing their next meeting. Ethan picked up the phone, his jaw tight. He'd already decided. Tonight wasn't the night for confrontation. Not yet. He needed more leverage, more control. Calmly, he memorized Oliver's number and replaced the phone exactly as he'd found it. As the shower continued to run upstairs, Ethan stood by the living room window, staring out at the quiet street. The peaceful scene was a stark contrast to the storm of brewing inside him. That night, lying in bed beside Sophia, Ethan stared at the ceiling. Her breathing was slow and even, but he knew she wasn't truly asleep. The space between them felt vast, a chasm that couldn't be bridged. He thought about the life they'd built together, the trust they had shared, and the dreams they'd once planned. All of it had been shattered. His resolve hardened. He would make them pay, not with impulsive rage, but with careful precision that would leave them reeling. The next day, Ethan began setting the trap. His home office became a war room of evidence. Photographs of Sophia and Oliver outside restaurants and hotels, screenshots of messages he had managed to capture, notes detailing times and places. Spread across his desk, they painted a damning picture of her betrayal. Oliver's phone number, scribbled on a post-it note, seemed to mock him with its very existence. That afternoon, Sophia's phone buzzed again, lying unattended on the counter. Ethan picked it up, his face impassive as he opened the messages. He typed carefully, mimicking her tone. "I need to see you tonight. Ethan's working late on the Harrison project. Come to the house. Don't want to wait for our usual spot." The reply came quickly, making his stomach churn. "Dangerous. Your place? What's gotten into you?" Ethan forced himself to respond with calculated ease. "Miss you too much. Door will be unlocked. Let yourself in. Want you my house for once." Oliver's response was immediate, and each word felt like a fresh wound. "Oh, babe. I like this side of you. See you at 8. Can't wait to feel your hands on me." Ethan deleted the conversation and replaced the phone. Checking the time, 2 p.m. He noted he had 6 hours until Oliver would arrive to walk into his trap. In his office, Ethan picked up his phone and dialed Lucas, his colleague. "I need you to do me a favor," he said, his voice calm. "What's up?" Lucas asked, the sound of blueprints rustling faintly in the background. "If anyone asks, I'm working late on the Harrison project tonight." There was a pause. "Why, man? What's going on? You've been off lately." "Just need an alibi," Ethan said firmly. "Can you handle that?" Lucas hesitated, then agreed. "Yeah, of course. But seriously, if you need to talk—" "I don't," Ethan interrupted, his tone leaving no room for argument. "Just cover for me." After ending the call, Ethan leaned back in his chair. The pieces were falling into place. Tonight, Sophia and Oliver would realize their secret wasn't as safe as they thought. They'd discover exactly what betrayal cost. Ethan spent the next few hours preparing meticulously. He rearranged the furniture just slightly, ensuring clear pathways through the room, and double-checked the security cameras he'd installed the previous week. They captured every angle perfectly. This wasn't just about confrontation. It was about having evidence if it came to that. At 6, Sophia arrived home. She flitted through the kitchen with nervous energy, her gaze flicking to her phone every few minutes. Ethan leaned against the doorway, watching silently as she adjusted her makeup, her face freshly touched up from work. "I might go to the gym later," she said, avoiding his eyes as she poured herself a glass of water. "The Harrison Project needs my attention," he replied evenly, his tone betraying nothing. "I'll probably be at the office late." "Don't wait up." Relief flickered across her face, poorly concealed. "Okay. Good luck with the project," she said, her voice just a little too light. Underneath the table, her fingers moved swiftly across her phone screen. Ethan could almost see the text she was sending. "Coast is clear. Still on for tonight." His hands tensed for a moment before he forced them to relax. "There's leftover chicken in the fridge if you want it," he added, his voice calm, the facade of normalcy intact. "Thanks, honey," she replied with a fleeting smile, guilt crossing her features briefly before her mask slipped back into place. She closed the refrigerator door too hard, the sound echoing as she turned away. At 7, Ethan made a show of gathering his work materials, stuffing blank papers into his briefcase. He kissed her cheek lightly, feeling the slight tension in her posture as she braced against the contact. "Don't work too hard at the gym," he said. "I won't," she replied quickly, already reaching for her phone as he walked out the door. Ethan didn't head to the office. Instead, he parked his car a block away, concealed behind the Bennett's thick hedge. At 7:45, he saw Sophia's car pull out of the driveway. She wasn't going to the gym. He'd followed her enough times to know her usual route. Tonight, like so many others, she was heading to the wine bar 3 blocks from Oliver's apartment, their usual rendezvous point before moving to his place. By 7:55, Ethan was back inside his house, waiting in the darkened living room. The security cameras blinked steadily, their small red lights a silent witness to the night's events. He had envisioned this confrontation 1,000 times. Violence had crossed his mind, a visceral, primal urge to make Oliver feel the same pain. But it was too easy, too fleeting. No, this had to be about consequences, about understanding. At precisely 8 o'clock, the front door opened with a quiet click. Confident footsteps echoed down the hallway, unhurried and self-assured. Ethan recognized the sound of expensive leather soles on hardwood, Italian, he guessed, based on his observations of Oliver's style. The footsteps paused by the staircase briefly before continuing toward the living room. Ethan reached over and flicked on the lamp. The sudden light made Oliver freeze in the doorway, one hand raised as if adjusting his tie. He was younger in person, early 30s, with the polished, gym-sculpted appearance of someone who prioritized looking good as part of his persona. The confidence in his expression evaporated as his eyes locked on Ethan, reality crashing into whatever fantasy he'd been entertaining. "You must be Oliver," Ethan said, his voice dangerously calm. "Come in. We should talk about your relationship with my wife." "There's been a misunderstanding," Oliver stammered, stepping back slightly toward the hallway. His eyes darted between Ethan and the front door, calculating the distance. Ethan stood slowly, his 6'2" frame towering over Oliver's more compact build. "No misunderstanding," he said coldly. "Sit down." "Look, man, sit down." Each word dripped with barely contained violence, leaving no room for argument. Oliver sank into the armchair reluctantly, his bravado fading. "Listen, I don't want any trouble," he began, his tone shifting to appeasement. "This is clearly a sensitive situation." "Sensitive?" Ethan laughed, the sound devoid of humor. "Trouble was walking into my home, thinking you'd spend time with my wife in my house. Trouble was sending her texts about shower while I sat across from her at dinner. What's happening now, Oliver? This isn't trouble. This is consequences." "She said you two were having problems," Oliver muttered, his eyes flickering toward the door again. "Said you were distant, that the marriage was basically over. And you believed her?" Ethan stepped closer, looming over him. "Or did you just not care? How many married women have you pursued, Oliver? The office gossip says I'm not the first husband you've disrespected." Oliver's face paled. "Who told you that? Emma from accounting, maybe? Or one of the others?" Ethan said, his smile sharp and cutting. "Word gets around, doesn't it? The charming account manager who preys on vulnerable women. Tell me, do you have a system, or do you just toss out lines until someone bites?" "This is crazy," Oliver said, standing abruptly, his fear overtaking his practiced charm. "I'm leaving." Ethan's hand shot out, gripping Oliver's shoulder with bruising force. "Not yet." He shoved Oliver back into the chair with ease. First, you're gonna listen to exactly what kind of man you are. Get your hands off me, Oliver growled, struggling. But Ethan's grip only tightened. I said listen. Ethan shoved him harder, making the armchair creak under the force. You walked into my house, my life, thinking there'd be no consequences. It stops now. Oliver tried to stand again, but Ethan's fist connected with his jaw, sending him sprawling over the coffee table. A thin trail of blood trickled from his split lip as he stared up at Ethan, the fear in his eyes now fully realized. I've done my research, Ethan said, his voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through him. 3 affairs with married women in the past 2 years. HR complaints that conveniently disappeared. You're not just a homewrecker, Oliver. You're a predator. You don't know anything. Oliver spat, struggling to his feet. I know everything. Ethan pulled out his phone, holding it up to show screenshots of emails, texts, and photos. Every meeting, every hotel, every lie. One email to your HR department about you spending time with a married coworker, and your career is over. How many companies want to deal with someone like you? What do you want? Oliver's voice trembled, blood dripping steadily from his lip. Ethan crouched to meet him, eye to eye. I want you to understand your place in this. You're not her savior. You're not her escape. You're just a convenient reproductive organ who doesn't care about the destruction you leave behind. Oliver's breathing quickened as Ethan leaned closer. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to disappear from her life. No ways. No explanations, Ethan said, his voice cold and measured. You'll block her number, avoid her at work, and if she tries to contact you, remember this moment. You're insane, Oliver spat, wiping the blood from his lip. Ethan's fist connected with his jaw again, sending Oliver sprawling back onto the floor. I'm perfectly sane. I'm just done playing nice. He hauled Oliver up by the collar, the expensive fabric tearing slightly under his grip. Do we understand each other? Oliver nodded frantically, his shirt stained red. Yeah, I understand. It's over. I'll stay away. Good. Ethan released him, watching as Oliver stumbled toward the door. And Oliver, if I ever see you near my wife again, this conversation won't be so civilized. Oliver fled, slamming the door behind him. Through the window, Ethan watched him sprint to his car, fumbling with his keys before peeling out onto the street. The house fell silent again. Ethan surveyed the room methodically, noting the few drops of blood on the hardwood and the coffee table slightly out of place. He straightened everything with deliberate precision, wiping away any physical traces of the confrontation while the security cameras continued their silent recording. His phone buzzed, a message from Oliver. I won't say anything about tonight. Just stay away from me. Ethan allowed himself a grim smile as he deleted the text. Phase 1 was complete. Now came the harder conversation. At 9:15, headlights swept across the windows. Ethan sat in his armchair, a glass of whiskey in hand, waiting. The front door opened, and Sophia stepped inside, stopping short when she saw him. Ethan? Her voice pitched high with surprise. I thought you were at the Harrison Project. Sit down, Sophia, he said, his voice quiet but steely. The authority in his tone left no room for argument. She obeyed, lowering herself into the chair with hesitant movements. We need to talk about Oliver. The color drained from her face. I don't. What are you don't? Ethan interrupted, his hand tightening around his glass. Don't insult me by lying. Not anymore. Ethan, please. I can explain everything. Explain what? He snapped, standing abruptly. The late nights? The gym sessions that somehow left her hair perfectly styled? Or maybe the texts about shower while we sat at dinner together? He pulled out his phone, showing her the evidence. Tears welled in her eyes. It wasn't. I never meant to get caught. Ethan finished for her, his voice razor sharp. That's the only thing you're sorry about, isn't it? That your perfect little affair got exposed. No, it was not like that. Sophia stood, reaching for him. I love you, Ethan. It was a mistake. Please, she sobbed, mascara streaking her cheeks. We can fix this. There's nothing to fix, Ethan said, his voice cold as he loomed over her. Your lover just left here with a bloody lip and a new understanding of consequences. He won't be waiting for you anymore. Her eyes widened in shock. What did you do? What needed to be done? Ethan turned toward the stairs, pausing at the bottom. Pack your things. I want you out of this house tonight. Ethan, please. Where am I supposed to go? He turned back, his gaze icy. Not my problem. You made this choice, Sophia. Now live with it. I'll tell everyone what you did to Oliver, she threatened, desperation sharpening her voice. I'll go to the police. Ethan laughed, the sound devoid of warmth. Go ahead. Tell them how your married lover showed up at my house to spend time with my wife. I'm sure that'll go over great at work. Don't forget, I've recorded everything, Sophia. Everything. Her shoulders sagged, and she crumpled onto the couch, her sobs racking her body. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm so sorry. No, you're not, Ethan said quietly. You're sorry you got caught. Sorry your comfortable life is falling apart. But you're not sorry for what you did. He turned and climbed the stairs. Pack your bags. When I come back down, I want you gone. In their bedroom, Ethan sat on the edge of the bed, listening to her movements below. The sound of drawers opening and closing, hangers scraping across rods, and her muffled sobs filled the silence. His phone buzzed, a message from Lucas asking if everything was okay. He ignored it, focusing instead on the task at hand. An hour later, the front door closed softly. Ethan descended the stairs, finding the house eerily quiet, yet somehow lighter. On the coffee table, Sophia had left her key in a note. He pocketed the key without reading the letter. Whatever justification she'd written meant nothing to him now. His phone buzzed again. Please don't do this. We can talk. I'll do anything. Another followed. I love you, Ethan. And another. Where am I supposed to go? My life is here. Ethan blocked her number, deleting the messages without replying. He poured himself another whiskey, sitting in a quiet house. For the first time in weeks, he felt a faint stir of peace. It wasn't happiness. Not yet, but the satisfaction of having dealt with the betrayal decisively. Tomorrow, he would call a lawyer. Tonight, he would savor the knowledge that he had delivered consequences. The house, now empty of her presence, felt cleaner, like a wound freshly lanced. Painful but necessary. His phone buzzed one final time. A message from an unknown number. You've made your point. I'm done with all of this. She's your problem now. Oliver, using a different phone. Ethan smirked grimly as he blocked this number too. No, he thought. She's her own problem now. The next morning dawned cold and gray, matching Ethan's mood. He sat at the kitchen counter, staring at a business card. James Walker, divorce attorney. He'd kept it in his wallet for weeks, knowing this moment was inevitable. His phone screen lit up with notifications. 15 missed calls from Sophia's block number, 3 from unknown numbers, and a string of increasingly desperate texts. Ethan didn't bother reading them. He picked up the card, ready to take the next step. Ethan picked up his phone, scrolling through the cascade of desperate messages with a detached expression. Please talk to me. I can explain everything. Where am I supposed to go? You can't just throw away 10 years. Another message popped up from an unknown number. My fiancé left me because of you. Thanks for ruining my life. Oliver. Ethan's lips curled into a cold smile as he typed a response. You ruined your own life. Be grateful that's all you lost. He hit send and immediately blocked the number. At 9:47 a.m., the doorbell rang. Ethan glanced at the security camera feed on his phone, watching Sophia pacing on the porch. She looked terrible, her makeup streaked from crying, her clothes wrinkled from the night before, and her once pristine hair now a disheveled mess. Ethan. Her voice cracked as it carried through the door. Please, I know you're in there. We need to talk about this like adults. Ethan remained silent, observing her as she pressed her forehead against the door. I have nowhere else to go, she continued, desperation bleeding into her voice. Oliver won't answer my calls. My credit cards are working. I tried to get a hotel room, but Ethan cut her off, calling through the door, his tone icy and controlled. Our joint accounts are frozen. Lawyer's recommendation. You can't do this to me, she snapped, her voice rising with anger. I helped build this life too. Everything we have, everything we had. Ethan corrected, still not opening the door. At least let me in so we can talk properly, she begged, her fist banging against the door now. This is still my house, too. Ethan opened the door abruptly, causing her to stumble back. His expression was impassive as he said, "Actually, it's not. My name is on the deed. I bought it before we were married. But I'm guessing you didn't read the prenup that carefully, did you?" Up close, Sophia looked even worse. Mascara smeared under red-rimmed eyes, her expensive suit rumpled from what had probably been a night sleeping in her car. She clutched a designer purse that likely cost more than most people's rent, but it wouldn't help her now. "Can I just come in?" she pleaded, her tone softening into the familiar coaxing voice she used when she wanted something. "Please, 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking." No, Ethan stood firm, blocking the doorway with his body. "But I'll give you 5 minutes right here. Consider it more generous than you deserve." "I made a horrible mistake," she began, wringing her hands nervously. "Oliver didn't mean anything. It was stupid and selfish, and I know that now. But 10 years of marriage. 10 years of what?" Ethan interrupted, his voice calm, unsettlingly so. 10 years of me building a life while you built a relationship with your coworker? "It wasn't like that," she insisted. "Things between us had gotten distant. Oliver was just, he made me feel, don't." The single word sliced through her excuses like a blade. "I don't care why you did it. I don't care how he made you feel. I care that you did it, and that you looked me in the eye every day and lied." "We can fix this," she said, her desperation turning sharp. "People overcome affairs all the time. With counseling, with "wanna know what I find interesting?" Ethan leaned against the doorframe, his gaze piercing. "You're more upset about losing your comfortable life than losing me." "That's not true," she protested, tears spilling down her cheeks. "I love you." "No, you don't," he said steadily. "You love what I provided. The house, the lifestyle, the stability. Tell me something, Sophia. How long would it have gone on if I hadn't caught you?" She flinched, guilt flashing across her face. 6 months, he answered for her, his voice hard. "I have every receipt, every hotel bill, every restaurant charge. Did you think I wouldn't notice the joint account being drained for your little rendezvous? You were watching me?" Her cheeks flushed with anger. "How dare you spy on me? How dare I?" Ethan's harsh laugh sent a chill down her spine. "You're standing here, begging to come back into my house after I caught you spending time with your lover in my bedroom. And you're upset about invasion of privacy? People make mistakes," she said, stepping closer, her tone shifting to pleading again. "Haven't you ever made a mistake? A mistake is forgetting an anniversary. A mistake is burning dinner," Ethan said, his voice unyielding. "Spending time with your coworker for 6 months? That's a choice. A series of deliberate choices you made every single time you met him. What about counseling?" she tried, her voice softening. "We could work through this. Learn to trust again. Build something stronger. There is no we anymore, Sophia." Ethan pulled an envelope from his back pocket. "These are divorce papers. My lawyer will contact yours." "I don't have a lawyer," she said, fresh tears streaming down her face. "I don't have anything. You've frozen all our accounts." "Joint accounts," he corrected. "Your personal account is still active." "Oh wait, that's right. You spent most of that on hotels and lingerie for Oliver, didn't you?" Her hand flew up to slap him, but Ethan caught her wrist easily. His grip was firm, not painful, but unyielding. "Don't," he said quietly, holding her wrist until she lowered it. "You lost the right to touch me the moment you let him touch you." "What am I supposed to do?" she whispered, her shoulders slumping in defeat. "Where am I supposed to go?" "That's not my problem," Ethan replied, releasing her wrist. "You're a college-educated professional, Sophia. Figure it out." "My parents will never forgive me," she said, her voice breaking. "They already know." Ethan's smile was icy. "I called last night, told them everything. Your mother cried. Your father asked if the prenup was still valid. He seemed relieved when I said yes." Her eyes widened in fresh horror. "You didn't." "I did," he confirmed. "Just like I sent emails to HR documenting Oliver's pattern of pursuing married coworkers." "Did you not know about his fiancée in Boston?" Sophia staggered back, as if struck. He's engaged? 3 years. Long-distance relationship." She was very interested in the photos I sent her, especially the ones from your little weekend getaway to the Riviera Hotel. "You know, the one you told me was a marketing conference." You've ruined everything, she shrieked. No, Sophia, Ethan said, holding the envelope out again. You did that. Take the papers. Read them. Sign them. The faster you do, the faster this ends. She snatched the envelope from his hand. I could fight this. Get my own lawyer. With what money? Ethan leaned back against the doorframe, his expression almost bored. The prenup is very clear about infidelity. You get what you brought in, minus joint assets acquired during the marriage. Considering your shopping habits, that's not much. I helped you build your career, Sophia said, her voice rising with anger. All those client dinners, the networking events, I was there for all of it. And while I was building our future, you were tearing apart our present. Ethan glanced at his watch. Your 5 minutes are up, he said coolly. Go find a lawyer, Sophia. The next time we talk, it'll be through them. Wait, she cried, grabbing the edge of the door as he began to close it. What about my things? My clothes? They're in garbage bags in a garage. Ethan replied evenly. Along with all the lingerie receipts I found. Funny how your taste in underwear improved when you had someone else to show it to. You're being cruel, she whispered, her voice trembling. No, he said, his expression unyielding. I'm being honest. Something you might want to try. He pried her hand off the door with deliberate care. The garage will be open until noon. After that, anything left goes to Goodwill. I have nothing, she choked out, fresh tears streaking her face. You have exactly what you chose, Ethan said, shutting the door firmly and engaging the lock with a decisive click. Through the security camera feed, he watched her linger on the porch for several minutes, staring at the divorce papers in her hands. Eventually, she walked to her car, a leased luxury vehicle that Ethan had already arranged to be repossessed the following day. The following weeks passed in a blur of legal meetings and paperwork. Sophia attempted to contact him twice more, even showing up at his office one day. The scene she caused, screaming at security as they escorted her out, fueled office gossip for weeks. You can't just throw me away, she'd shouted. 10 years. Don't I deserve a second chance? Ethan ignored the whispers from his co-workers. Let them talk. He had nothing to be ashamed of. At their legal meetings, Sophia's lawyer, a sharply dressed woman in suits far out of Sophia's current price range, tried to fight the prenup. My client contributed significantly to this marriage, she argued, gesturing across the conference table. The house value has doubled the investment portfolio. Your client violated the fidelity clause. Ethan's lawyer interrupted, sliding a stack of receipts, photos, and messages across the table. Section 3, paragraph 2, is explicit about the consequences. These photos were obtained without her consent, Sophia's lawyer countered. In public places, Ethan's lawyer shot back. There's no expectation of privacy in a hotel lobby or a restaurant. And the credit card statements? Completely admissible. The negotiations were over in 20 minutes. Sophia left with only her personal belongings, her car loan transferred to her name, and a settlement so modest it wouldn't cover 3 months' rent in a decent apartment. A month after the divorce was finalized, word spread through Ethan's office that Oliver had left the company. He returned to Boston, attempting to salvage his engagement. It didn't work. The last anyone heard, he'd taken a lower-paying job at a smaller firm, his career trajectory permanently damaged. Sophia, too, had switched jobs, moving to a lesser position at a smaller company across town. She tried reaching out through mutual friends, sending messages about regret and personal growth, but Ethan ignored each one. He blocked every new number and deleted every message without reading it. She seems really sorry, his sister Sarah said over coffee one morning. Maybe, no, Ethan cut her off, his tone brooking no argument. 6 weeks after the divorce was finalized, Sophia made one last attempt. Ethan found her sitting on his porch steps one evening. She looked thinner, older, and utterly defeated. Just hear me out, she pleaded as he approached. 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking. I already gave you 5, he said, moving to step past her. I've lost everything, she said quietly. My job, my fins, my Olma. Oliver, he never cared about me. He just moved on to the next willing woman. You didn't lose anything, Ethan replied, turning to face her. You threw it away. There's a difference. Can we please talk? She begged, standing and wiping at her tears. All these years together. Do they mean nothing? Ethan unlocked his door and glanced at her. The woman I married never existed. She was just a role you played until something more exciting came along. That's not true. She grabbed his arm. I loved you. You have a funny way of showing it, he said, removing her hand. Go home, Sophia. Whatever's left of it. I have an apartment share with 2 roommates, she said bitterly. My portion of the rent is more than I can afford on my salary. Is that what you wanted to hear? I don't want to hear anything from you, he replied firmly. That's the point you keep missing. You've punished me enough. Her voice rose in frustration. I get it, okay? I screwed up. I lost everything. Isn't that enough? Ethan paused in the doorway, his voice calm but unyielding. It's not about punishment, Sophia. It's about consequences. You made choices, adult choices. Now you're living with adult consequences. So that's it, she asked, her voice breaking. 10 years mean nothing? They meant everything, Ethan said, meeting her gaze. That's why there's no coming back from this. Goodbye, Sophia. He stepped inside and closed the door with finality. Through the window, he watched her shoulders shake with sobs before she finally walked away, disappearing into the gathering darkness. Inside, Ethan poured himself a whiskey and sank into his favorite chair. The house felt different now. Not yet a home, but no longer a monument to betrayal. It was quiet, almost peaceful. His phone buzzed with a text from Lucas. Drinks tonight? You've been hibernating too long. Ethan stared at the message for a moment before replying. Give me 30 minutes. He glanced around the living room. The furniture had been rearranged, the security cameras removed, their memory cards safely stored with his lawyer. The space was no longer haunted by that night's confrontation. Ethan knew he had lost more than just a wife and a marriage. He'd lost a certain faith in people, a capacity for trust that might never fully return. But he'd gained something, too, a clearer understanding of his own strength, his refusal to accept betrayal, and his ability to rebuild even after devastation. Before leaving, he checked his phone one last time. A new message had arrived from an unknown number, Sophia's latest attempt to reach him. Without opening it, he deleted the message and blocked the number. It no longer felt like anger. It felt like closing a book. The story was over. It was time to start a new one. Grabbing his keys, Ethan stepped out to meet Lucas. Behind him, the house stood quiet and empty, its rooms slowly transforming into something new, a foundation for whatever came next. He didn't know what the future would hold, but he knew one thing for certain. No one would ever make him question his worth again.